All right, guys. I appreciate that. We're going to talk about a technique today, and we're going to focus around the really close to the spawn, but we'll start with the immediate pre-spawn. But let me tell you about my setups first and kind of what the 1-2 punch that I call really is. Swim bait fishing, first of all, it can be very conditional, but we're going to talk about a swim bait that I personally have won a lot of money on. It's a swim bait I designed with Lunker Hunt, and it is modeled after an older bait by another company that I'm not even sure they still make the bait anymore, but at the time I was using that bait in 2015 when I won a tournament over at Beaver Lake. I was using this exact technique to win that tournament. It was a 1-2 punch. Smith Lake, the last year I fished on FLW, I used it to finish in the top 5 there. I've used it anytime those big females are pulling up and getting ready to do their thing. They might not necessarily be doing their thing yet, but they're getting ready to do their thing. But the fetch, it's a 4.5-inch swim bait, weighs a ½ ounce, and the number one way I like to rig it, and this is a 7.5 foot, and I think we can go to the setups there. Yeah, you'll see the setups there. So this is a 7.5 foot Lew's custom pro rod. It's a heavy action rod. Sometimes I'll throw it on a 7.4. It just depends on if I'm skipping the bait a lot. I can have a little bit more control. I like a longer rod, but I can have a little bit more control sometimes with that 7.4 if I'm skipping it under, really tight spots. This is key on rigging this bait. Now, I like to fish it weightless, and a lot of guys see that bait, and they see it on that big 6/0 Superline EWG Gamakatsu hook, and it's weightless. Now, weightless on this bait, and the reason I designed this bait like this is because this is a visual bait for me. It's something that I track a lot with my own eyes. I want this bait to run no deeper than 12 to 18 inches underneath the surface. Rigged on this Superline EWG, and it's got to be a Superline. That's key, because if you use a lighter wire hook with no weight, the bait's not going to keel properly, okay? So it's going to roll on its side, and it's not going to do it's not going to have the action it needs to trigger those fish. You can go to a 6, you can go to a 7. Either one will work. The 6 is just what I started with. It's what I prefer. It's what I got confidence in, and confidence is key, right? So I'll use a slow to medium retrieve. This bait has a really, really subtle action. But the reason I like this bait over all the other glide baits out there, all the other soft swim baits out there, is the subtle action of this bait. And I can't tell you exactly why they do it, but it's even back when I started using the other swim bait that I modeled this bait after. For some reason, they just commit to this bait a lot better. And, I mean, there's a perfect instance. You can go on YouTube and see this catch, and it's probably hands down the coolest catch of my career. But when I won that tournament in 2015 at Beaver Lake, I had a fish come out from underneath the dock following a swim bait. Has anybody seen this catch that I'm talking about? You've seen it? Okay. And this fish it follows this bait all the way up to the side of the boat. Well, how many times do we have a fish follow a swim bait all the way up the boat, and you might not be paying attention or watching or whatever, and you look down and there's like a 5, 6, 7 pounder following your swim bait, and he turns away from it. 99% of the time, that's what happens, right? This fish is a 5 pounder, and at Beaver Lake, that's a big one. This fish was so focused on that bait. I was out of line at this point. I'm completely out of line, right? So I'm thinking like musky fishing in my head now. At this point, I'm out of line. So this 5 pounder is not leaving that swim bait, but if I kill it, he's going to leave it, most likely. The bait's just going to sit there and fall and look unnatural. So I just take my rod, and I'm out of line. I literally got this much line out, and the fish is still there behind the bait. And I just start walking down the side of the boat, literally walking down the side of the boat, just like I'm musky fishing, which I don't musky fish. I really didn't know what I was doing. I just seen it on TV. I've seen them do the little crazy figure 8s and all that mess. But so I'm walking down the side of the boat, and you can actually see the fish in the video. The fish turns against my boat, literally against the side of the boat. No, this fish wasn't blind or anything like that, not that I know of. And he's following the swim bait down the side of the boat, and just like that, he swallows it. I mean, and people say crazy stuff happens when you win tournaments, and this was a pretty crazy catch. And if it wasn't for that fish, I probably wouldn't have won the tournament. But not just that instance, but I've seen a lot of fish come up behind this bait and commit to it. I mean, actually commit to it instead of, because big swim bait, we think big. Now, to a California guy, this isn't big, but to most of us around here, this is a pretty big bait, right? I mean, we throw a lot of little Kitex and little paddle tails and 2.5, 3-inch baits.
It's Mike Iaconelli. This is Bass U TV.
Here's what's awesome about Bass U TV.
You get the top instructors.
Real tools that help you catch more fish consistently.
And that's why you want to check out Bass U TV.
Join the Bass U family.
Welcome to Bass U TV.